trying to rant about stuff, get things off my chest, and just it's just like I don't know. I don't even seem to be able to convert the stuff, and it's not even working. And how some of the stuff I've ranted about, like it just ridiculous. It's like I can't make myself stop. I just start talking and went on for like 15 or 16 or something hours straight. I think one time. Like I don't know. It's like morning into the next morning, basically. Because it just has so much on my mind and so much in my heart that I want to get out. I don't know. It's getting bad. It's getting kind of bad now. The drinking shit and that all depression stuff like that. It's just and anxiety and so on and so forth. I mean, the thing is though, I don't feel like there's really much help. Like you go to a doc. I think a big issue we have in society and why shit doesn't get fixed in a lot of ways is just because so many of us are our thoughts and feelings and everything are just completely disregarded, and we're just like the whole society gaslights you. Everything's a mental illness that you know Doc, I'm lonely and depressed. Oh, you have a psychiatric disorder. They don't say, you know hey, do you have any friends, any social network? Do you have family that cares about you? Is anyone around? Like, nope, don't even have a dog. And I feel like that's a huge societal issue that we have. It's just like so many of our experiences and stuff are just, it, they're just, it's just like nonstop gaslighting about everything, right? Like, as I could come up with like examples or whatever, like, well, like, imagine if you saw a UFO or you got abducted by a UFO, and you could have footage on your phone. You could have pictures of the aliens and the cold metal table and the whole nine, right? And they could even talk about things on the news and so on and so forth. But you go into a doctor or you try to tell your family about it, they're like, "Oh, you're just imagining things," right? Here, take two of these pills and call me in the morning. That's just, or say you like, you know, live in a haunted house or something, or some poltergeist in your house or something, and there can be just millions and millions of, or hundreds of millions or more different stories of this type of stuff and footage and whatever, right? But damn near anyone you tell about is just gonna think you're just gonna treat you like you're nuts, right? The doctors will treat you like you're nuts, on and on. And that's your family, everything. So because of that, like there don't seem to be any real, solutions happening in society that to make things better anymore, because most of our problems are just disregarded and treated as though they're not real. Or you can't keep up with your job, or you're having whatever hard time paying bills when everything's so ridiculously expensive. Well, that's your fault. You're just lazy. You just don't want to do anything. You know. I mean, this place is so cold, man, in so many ways, right? I mean, there's people in this world that probably haven't had a decent night's sleep in a year or multiple years or something because they never had anywhere peaceful enough where they weren't being harassed, and where their sleep wasn't interrupted. You know what I mean? Because it's that bad. It's that bad, and everyone ignores it and acts like it's not that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like that's a lot of the problem in society. Like you could be a little kid or something that's actually being like tormented by a fucking demon or a poltergeist or ghost or some shit, right? And you tell your mom, you tell your dad, you tell a doctor, anything. And it's like, those don't exist. Everything's fine. You know? Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is here, man. It's messed up. And there's so many issues like that, in this world where it's just everything in the world just gets worse and worse and worse and worse because everyone just keeps pretending like everything's fine when it's fucking far from it. And it keeps getting further and further from it. And just this huge mass of people out there that just either don't notice or don't care, you know? Or they've just deluded themselves into thinking everything's fine when it's fucking not. It's a lack of empathy, a lack of care in the world, is huge. I remember probably 3, 4 months ago or something, I was felt so depressed and like just like abandoned and so on, basically. I mean, I've had times where I'd be so depressed that like I would almost feel like bursting into tears or something if somebody gave me a hug or like a dog licked my face or something. Just some kindness, right? It just seems like there's such a lack of warmth in this world these days, you know? And I mean, there's all kinds of issues in society that are huge, but that there's lots of people that could solve all those problems, that have the resources and the capacity to be able to, that just have no fucking interest. Basically, they don't care. Like there's tons of issues in society like that, right? Like for instance, there's a what's that parasite called? There's like a parasite that cats have that will basically make mice and rats like just about fall in love with the cat, you know? And they'll come up and yeah, right? It makes them a victim, right? This same parasite that alters people's moods and you know alters people's emotions and their brain chemistry and so forth exists in like something like upwards of 90% of the human population. It's something like that. It's like some huge, I don't remember exactly what the number is, but it's huge percentage of the world has this parasite. But the point that I'm making is that there doesn't seem to be any interest or effort in the world to eliminate that parasite. You know? Imagine there's all kinds of issues in the world that are just completely ignored, right? And that's just an example of one, right? Oh yeah, there's this parasite that's affecting the minds and emotions of the human, pretty much the vast majority of the human population. Could be responsible for war and you know all kinds of terrible things happening in the world. Let's just ignore it. You know, pretend like it doesn't exist. Yeah. Or take the Mandela effect, for instance. There's all kinds of weird like shit going on, and everyone's just like, let's all just ignore it. That's crazy. You know. I mean, that's a big part of the problem, and the problems we have in the world, you know? Like the ghost example, that's a real deal, you know? That's how fucking unconscious the majority of the population, how unempathetic and uncaring the majority of the population is. That something where there's so much evidence to back it up, right, in the world that likely a very real issue is ignored. There's so many issues like that, right? I mean, the supernatural, that type of stuff is just one example. It's something that where there's mountains and mountains of evidence and hundreds of millions, if not billions, of different stories about all sorts of weird shit. But if you talk to almost anyone about that sort of shit, they just treat you like you're nuts, like your experience wasn't real and it's just fully imagined and you're wacko or whatever, right? Oh, that's a fun story. Who cares, you know? And it's to a level where it's like it's full on societal, you know? Like you could be a little kid or something getting, you know, waking up with like scratches on your arms and furniture being thrown across the room in your bedroom and stuff like that. But if your parents don't see it and you tell them about it, they just treat you like you're lying or imagining things or whatever, right? Oh, that sort of thing doesn't exist. Good night, honey. You know? I mean, think about it. I'm just bringing up issues. Some are societal issues, but the others are just examples of how fucking unconscious most of the people in the fucking world are, for the most part, right? Well, I mean, like, let's say that, I mean, there's a huge portion of the population, right, that believes in, like, ghosts, aliens, angels, God, the devil, all that shit, right? Or one, something like that, right? If that's real, then doesn't that seem important enough for there to be, all sorts of experiments and technologies and so on and so forth, and some attempt to address the situation, the whole of fucking human society, all the scientists, engineers, and researchers in the world can't even bother to come up with a fucking camera that can properly film a ghost, right? Shit like that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that. Like, imagine how crazy that is, though. Like, something that's that out of this world, that serious, is just swept under the rug and treated as though it doesn't exist, right? I mean, how that's nuts, right? No real addressing the issues in the world, is what I'm saying. I mean, homelessness is a perfect, and the addiction is problems and so on and so forth. There's tons and tons of people that seem to be more like pretending to try to help. But there's this insistence throughout the world, especially the Western world, to insist upon Pavlovian conditioning and abuse as being the method of solving the issue, right? As opposed to decency and humanity, care, you know? Some fucking empathy. It's just a staggering level of unconsciousness, is what I'm saying. Like, it's like beyond elephant in the room type of shit. And there's so many things in the world that are like that now in our society. For everything, there's so many things. And, like, really, like, if you have, They say you have, had traumatic experiences and you have panic attacks or anxiety or, whatever, right? And you're actually living in a dangerous area where there's crazy happening around you. But you can't bring up with a doctor that there's a reason why you have anxiety, you know, right? You're never allowed to address the elephant in the room, If you have anxiety for very real reasons, it's treated as a mental disorder. If you're struggling with depression because you had a lot of bad experiences and traumatic stuff in your life, you have a disorder. You know what I mean? Something wrong with you, right? And this place is so wacko, I mean, the world's gone so wacko that like nobody can even agree on how many genders there are. For instance, as just another example of how we didn't agree on religions and politics and all that, right? It's just because there's just such a large tendency for a lack of empathy and a lack of care. And, like take the Mandela effect thing, for instance, right? And I'm just gonna I experienced it. I've seen a lot of stuff that's really weird. But my point, whether or not it was a real phenomenon, it's something where the issue is so major. It's either just looking at kind of devil's advocate here, right? On this one. But like, either there's like supernatural changes occurring to our world that could potentially drastically negatively affect our fucking lives, right? Or there's a bunch of crazy people out there that are just having really bad memory problems. Either way, it's something that should be fucking, studied and addressed, and you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Now, I know the shit's fucking real, the shit I've seen, but even for someone like impartial or that thinks it's bullshit or whatever, should be concerned enough to, to thoroughly research the phenomenon and there's all kinds of other stuff like that, right? Like, And basically, just all I'm saying is almost all of the problems in society and in the world and so on and so forth exist and persist and continue on because of a failure to address the issues, a failure to research things and care enough to look into things. I mean, I'll give you this is kind of a elephant in the room type of thing. It's also like it's super controversial to say this sort of thing, but it's a pretty damn good example of the level of lack of care, lack of empathy, and just insanity at work in the world. Basically, would be militaries and the wars that go on and the way that it's seen and treated and by society, right? I mean, parents will literally look with pride and reverence at their son or daughter who signs up to go to some foreign land and be involved in like murder and stuff like that, right? And that is treated like it's heroic and like it's great to the point where they encourage everyone to do it. And there's huge cemeteries all across the country filled up with millions of this nation's and other nations' sons and daughters steeped beneath the soil, you know? But a parent or a teacher or anyone, right, basically, almost anyone in society would strongly encourage their own children into going over to some dangerous part of the world and possibly getting their legs blown off or something, right? And they'll say, "I'm so proud of you. Go get him, Billy." I mean, that's just something as basic as wanting to protect your children and keep them from getting hurt and teaching them not to hurt other people and so on and so forth is such a foreign concept to the modern world that we live in. You know, it's just it's again probably another of the more controversial types of things that I mentioned. It's just it's bad. I mean, or I don't know. I probably shouldn't even mention the V to the A to the X situation. Stuff like that. I'm just saying, like, the idea that so many people would be so unconscious at something like that, that they would rush to be injected and to get their own children and so on injected with something that really they don't even know what the hell it is or what's in it, you know? Yeah. Good, bad, otherwise, whatever, right? Like, the truth is, most people don't even know what's in this, you know? But they line up to have their own children, you know? Example of the level of unconsciousness in the world, is all I'm saying. It, I mean, really, I think it's just, I'm just saying, like, this, the level of unconsciousness is what's responsible for so many, maybe even nearly all of the major problems we have in the world, basically. It comes down to a lack of care, empathy, and attention, right? You know, like the ghost example, right? If your kid, or alien abduction, or whatever, right? Like if a little kid is getting abducted from his bedroom by fucking space aliens or some shit, right? Or getting tortured by demon or poltergeist or, you know, whatever, right? He can't even tell his mom and dad and get them to take him seriously, or you know, him or her or whatever, to actually try to help them, you know? Their own child, you know? I don't know. I think it's, you know, it's kind of around Halloween, so I can use this example, right? The you know, the movie, God, what the hell is it? Hocus Pocus, right? In the movie, there's, you know, the three Sanderson sisters, and they're kidnapping children from all around the village so they can, you know, their energy, right? Well, the way things are nowadays, it seems almost like there would be no villagers showing up at the house. There would be no, you know, it'd just be like, oh, your son's missing. Oh, so's mine. Oh well, what can you do? Oh, they're probably fine. You know, like that seems to be the level of the lack of care that exists nowadays. I mean, I've experienced a lot of this in my life. You know, I've had, I overdosed years ago. Probably, and hell, probably even more recently with alcohol and stuff. But my point is, like, doing dumb shit like that and stuff. That was going on when I was 16 years old. But nobody would even show up. for quite a while to even check in to see if I was okay. No one was staging an intervention or any of that, right? It was just like it must have just get bitched at or something, right? I was never once taken to a hospital and had my stomach pumped. You know, I don't know, man. It hurts. It hurts to not have love in your life. You know, it hurts. Yeah, to feel alone, unwanted, or whatever. Just I don't know, man. And it's just, I don't know, it's really a whole lot of the issue in the world. I mean, like, for instance, parasites and stuff, right? It's possible that most of the negative shit in our society is caused by parasites affecting our minds and our emotions. Maybe. I mean, if there's even the slightest possibility that that's true, there should be a massive, team of experts or something researching the hell out of that to try and solve the issue. But if that is the issue, then it's so bad, right? That no one even looked at it. I don't know, man. Here I go ranting, long rant again. I don't know, I'm just saying, like, and the comment about the military or whatever, what made me think of that, they keep playing this commercial, where they're just, honoring and praising these troops, these veterans and stuff that got injured, like, horrendously. And I'm just saying, like, it's real sad that that sort of thing happened to him. But if people would stop doing that, stop praising and, worshiping the whole thing, and instead telling their children, hey, don't go get your legs blown off, please. Please don't go somewhere, overseas and hurt people, right? Etc., I see the, injured veterans, and I'm thinking, like, if they hadn't been waving flags and singing Yankee Doodle Dandy and telling all the kids how neat it would be to go overseas and, having all these movies and all this parades and all this sort of it's like promoting them as like a hero class or something, and people wouldn't go do it, and then they'd still have their legs and their arms and so on and so forth. They wouldn't have some severe head trauma from the IED that went off under their, because they wouldn't have fucking gone over there if it wasn't for all that hero worship shit, I'm just... So I don't mean to offend people by saying that stuff. What I really mean, basically, is if it was up to me, you'd still have all your parts in working order. If it was up to me, you wouldn't have all these terrible traumatic experiences in your life. It's a huge amount of the problem in society is a lack of acknowledging truth, right? I don't know. There's all this stuff. I mean, remember when they used to talk about, the dangers of violent video games and stuff like that? The way I see it, honestly, they had a point, The violent movies and video games, all this stuff that promotes destructive behavior. Destructive to self and others, I feel like, by and large, as a society, we've made our heroes into monsters and our monsters into heroes, kind of, basically, That's a big reason why all of this world is so screwed up. I don't know, man. Like, there's so much destructive stuff in our society, right? Like, well, the truth of the matter in this world is that we need other people in our lives. We need help. We need, you know, care and affection and, so on and so forth, right? But for the most part, we refuse to acknowledge it, and a lot of it's because things have gotten screwed up over the years so bad now that it's hard to trust people, to even feel safe with other people anymore, because it's a lack, it's a lack of empathy, and it's also a lot of trauma, you know. If people are hurt or frightened or whatever, right? And so they might come off as loud, abrasive, or aggressive, or something, or whatever, just defense mechanisms, I don't believe for a second that it's in human nature to be monstrous and wicked. I see it's the nature of something else that has infected the mind, body, and spirit of human consciousness. And this thing is, wicked and hates us and out to hurt us, basically, right? This, whether you want to say it's the devil or demiurge or aliens or ghosts or whatever the heck you want to say, right? There's something in the world that it should be addressed. It's not nice, and it's this world is trying to hurt us, but not just that. It's what it seems like this world is about is like it's designed to corrupt us and turn us into monsters, basically. Like, it's like there's this dark force, right? It goes to massive lengths And it's not about just like hurting us, it's about corrupting us. About hurting what is innocent within us, basically, right? I don't know, man. The thing about me, bits and pieces. Like I mean, I actually remember being a kid. And that's still a part of me inside. And it hurts so much to live in a world that's become so harsh that you're not able to be. You're not like able or allowed to be who you are, and to, I don't know, one thing that seems like it happens here in this world is like, I don't know if I already used the dog analogy, but basically it's like, and I know this isn't true for everyone. Some people had extremely terrible childhoods and stuff like that. I get it. I had some pretty bad stuff, but had some good too. I can't pretend like this place is all bad. There's so much bad here. Honestly, a whole lot of the reason for it is just, it's unconsciousness. It's forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, basically, kind of thing. It's like people. Well, I mean, there's a lot of really bad stuff that goes on in the world, and a lot of injustice and unfairness, and it's true. It's absolutely true. It's so messed up. I saw this video on like YouTube or whatever. It was like an interrogation room video of this woman that just snapped and killed her own granddaughter. Like, I mean, it was terrible. She did something extremely terrible, but she starts ranting about how fucked up the world is, and so on and so forth, right? And the thing is, man, as messed up as this thing she did was, and it was, most what she was saying was true. You know, homelessness and the way it exists in the modern day is egregious and terrible, and there's no good dang reason why it should even exist. Why people aren't allowed to, you know, live in a camp trailer in the woods or build a cabin and, you know, or whatever, right? And just all the resources we have in the West, man, it'd have, and the ingenuity and stuff, information that we had, like, all the lumber and all the materials that exist, like, nobody should have to be homeless. Not really, I mean, if there just wasn't so much restriction and so on and so forth, that alone could solve homelessness. And much of the stuff that would pop up would be, you know, nice, you know, neatly designed, decent, you know, structures. And like some people might live in a shanty shack or something, but at least they'd have that. Mm-hmm. And they just let them without having to have some meddling control freaks butting into their life, you know? I don't know. Who is it?